Hola, hola. Buenos dias, G&Gs, or buenos noches, because I don't know when you're actually watching this. My name is Trekk with two Ks. This is the Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel. And so if you don't know, the basic idea is I cover crypto events that happen between the Friday and Sunday, recorded for you to drop out on a Monday morning, right before the live stream that comes on around 10-ish, okay? Before I jump into that, let me just say thank you to the folks who are tapping in. Thank you to the folks who are not letting the bear market get them down or this whole crypto winter thing and still looking to find information to be aware of what's going on in the space. And if you don't know, Gentlemen of Crypto, we have a lineup of people who are covering various aspects of this crypto space as it has matured. And so I'm doing my part here for the weekend stories. Also, thank you for the lurkers. Thank you for the scammers. I appreciate y'all. So let's get into this first story here. And so it goes 248 million stablecoins flow out of Coinbase as community refutes exchange liquidity issues. So the basic thing that's been going on is that with everything coming out about Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, and BlockFi, people are starting to question any kind of activity. Let me say this again, any type of movement of a policy change or whatever within major companies in the space. And it's, whoa, what are you doing? What do you mean? What's going on? And that's basically what happened in the story here. There's no actual hard evidence as to say that there is an issue with the stablecoins on consensus right now, but it's basically the rumor mill is going around and doing what it's doing. I do, however, find it interesting here. Yes, stablecoins have been moving off of the Coinbase wallets and going into wherever they're going. And the article here covers how we don't see the same activity going on within Binance, but I argue that Binance moves a little bit differently and hasn't necessarily had the same track record as Coinbase. Now, though, here's the thing. Ben Held, if you don't know who he is, he has his own podcast and he's also over at Kraken. And he's like, hey, Coinbase doesn't have any liquidity issues. That's what he's going out there and saying, which is then corroborated by the developer who was responsible at Coinbase for the affiliate program, because been a number of different things that have happened. And so this affiliate program being cut back has been like one of the newer, let's say, red herrings, not even red herrings, but markers to be like, hey, they're having an issue. Now, is it anything to do with liquidity? We don't exactly know, but arguably, if the developer who actually put the system together is saying, hey, there's no issue here, do we take it at face value? Yeah, we can. One of the things that I will say is a commonality in this weekend's stories is there is no transparency for things that do not happen on chain. One of the older ethos of this thing is don't trust but verify. If I don't have a way to verify it that is understandable to my level, then what do I really have? So arguably, even to say that, oh, it's on chain stuff doesn't actually mean that I can verify it if I don't know how to read blockchain transactions and activities. Just saying. Nonetheless, the point being is that there's two notable people, one from inside the company and somebody from outside the company, saying that there's no issue. Time will tell. That's what I'm gonna leave it as. And as you know, in general, we do say don't leave your stuff on exchanges. If you're not trading, it ain't no real point to it unless you just really sloppy with your security, but that's a whole nother story. Moving on to this next thing, right? Australian central bank governor prefers private issue tokens over CBDCs, what I call AKA blue dogs. Now, when I read this, I was kind of like, wait, like what's going on here? And basically there was the G20 meeting that happened, and this particular person made a comment or two about CBDCs in comparison to stablecoins. So we're talking about USTD, we're talking about USDC, PAX. I don't know if they made a commentary that relayed to DAI or anything like that, but the way the article is written, it is focused on, in particular, Tether, USDC, and the one that Paxo does. Let me go through this highlight section real quick. Lowe said that the private tokens must be backed by the state, and deposits into insurers like Circle must be regulated like bank deposits. So you see where that's going. Lowe is adamant that the private route is better than a central bank digital currency, provided the regulations can keep up. He believes that the private sector is better off pioneering features for the tokens, and that setting up a CBDC would prove a costly exercise for the central bank. Now, here's my thing about this. If it's a digital on the screen thing that like how you do with money right now, how could it cost an exorbitant amount of money unless you're sideways admitting that y'all do bullshit to make the process more bureaucratic and cumbersome? because it shouldn't be. I can make my own token online 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I don't even got to be able to code to do it. That's the funky part. So if it's only taking me under 15 minutes, how is it taking y'all longer and being more expensive as a central bank? I don't understand. But nonetheless, I digress. The other thing that I think is actually the most important part of this whole article is this thing about the FSB. So on July 11th, which already passed at this point, the Financial Stability Board of the Group of 20 Economies said it would make new rules for cryptocurrencies in October 2022. Now, here's what I think is the more important thing to understand about this whole thing. The FSB is composed of regulatory, treasury officials, and central bankers. These aren't people that you vote for. These are people who just end up in the position because they've been working wherever they work and they know who to who. And then now they over here making policies and regulations that dictates how you can spend the money that you earn and what you can do with it. And how much economic sovereignty are you allowed to have? That's what gets me about this whole thing right here. Let me say this. In relation to this particular article, I think that it is more so they don't want to have to deal with, and let me get close up to say this to y'all. They don't want to have to deal with the direct line of central bank and then you have commercial and retail. So business and like regular everyday you and me person on the same level. But instead, if you have it where you still have that intermediary, like in between, like here and here, now what happens is you can do it like what happens in precious metals, where you have the paper market. And all you have to do is shoulder taps on the industry titans of that sector to manipulate the paper market price without having to deal with the direct real world asset thing. I would argue that's what he's getting at. But again, I didn't actually listen to any of the full G20 conversation, but that's just me. So enough of beating that horse. Let's move on to the next story. And so the next story, as I've been saying, y'all, there's a number of things that happen and I got like I think 10 things on here. I'm not gonna be able to cover everything. I am gonna do a tweet about this that will have the links and stuff for folks who are interested. Nonetheless, jumping into Circle. So Circle claims USDC stablecoin is now fully backed by cash US Treasury. When I first initially was going through this, I wasn't 100% certain if I was understanding it because I wasn't sure. Actually, no. I got to get to that one in the next minute. But basically, the idea is this. Circle, the payment company behind USDC stablecoin, has released a full asset breakdown of the reserves backing its growing dollar peg token. Now, we're going to jump down straight to the next highlight, right? Because the numbers are whatever they are. That's not necessarily the issue, but it is about, hey, are you being transparent? I would argue that this is a very good PR move considering what's going on right now with everyone in the space in general, as far as how we're learning that even though blockchain is about transparency because things are on the blockchain that everyone can see publicly if it is a public blockchain, the business side that make the business function and the partnerships are not. I would argue that this is a good thing as far as what they're doing this way. Now, here's the other thing that got me though. Actually, it was up here. So the basic idea was that they used what is this thing called? There it is. They use something called commercial paper, and commercial paper is not backed by Jack Diddley. Commercial paper is basically an IOU. And so what they showed within this report is that basically they moved away from having a backing of the stablecoin using commercial paper, and now they're just all cash. Granted, we can't follow the provenance of the history of how the money or the funding has moved from point A to B, because again, this is not on chain. This is just them providing their compilation or their summarization of all of the activity that has been going on. So on outsiders as ourselves, we can actually verify this. But nonetheless, this did happen. I also think this goes into something else more interesting because it later then came out that Paxos did the same thing where they put out a detailed report of what's going on with their backing. I think some of these companies, in particular the ones who have stablecoins, are realizing if they want to keep market adoption without running into bigger issue with the regulators because of the Terra Luna situation, they're going to have X amount more transparency. But I still question how transparent is it if it's not on chain. But I do think this is a possible trend that might be happening where more companies will come out with stuff like this for the more public consumption. And then the other part being is Tether is the only one that hasn't done anything as far as when this article got pushed out. But That's whatever it is right now. Again, is it really transparency? Is this community policing? How about that? Is this community policing? How many of the people who use Tether would actually be like, yo, y'all need to put out a report right now that gives transparency like everybody else is doing? I don't know. I really don't. So jumping to this next story, I thought this was pretty interesting, honestly, in that there's a company. So let me read this headline. ADA, Doge, and Sheeb can now be sent and swapped at more than 6,000 ATMs through this feature. So basically the company CoinCloud basically came up with an app that allows, and this is a non-custodial app that allows more than 6,000 ATMs to be able to be connected to where they can basically sell and buy cryptocurrencies using the app that connects them to the CoinCloud network of Bitcoin ATMs, as well as digital currency ATMs, which is just like, hey, we got other crypto on this ATM too. That's all that means. Now, the more interesting part to me, and I had covered this, I think a couple episodes back, about this company here called Cardenas Markets, which is a grocery store line that is West Coast and not East Coast. So CoinClouds will eventually have to find, if they're not already working on it, a partner within the East Coast region that can provide this same level of distribution of their network of ATMs. I also think that for the company CoinCloud, this also helps them deal with market adoption of the Latin American market, because this is one of the largest chain stores in the West Coast, operating 59 stores in 3 different states. And granted, California, Arizona, and Nevada, but nonetheless, think about how much remittance money ends up moving back to Latin America, as well as Central America, and even the other regions too. But the point being is, this is happening. This is market adoption, as what we've been talking about, the whole thing of mass adoption. This is an example of it. I would also add in, though, there's a potential issue of what happens when they really start biting into Western Union's market share. And then when the local, whether you're talking about state, province level, or federal level governments of those countries start going, oh, y'all are moving that much money around, we got to start tapping shoulders. I'm just saying, we know how the game gets played. We've been seeing what's going on. But nonetheless, I'm moving on. So we get into the country of Russia. Let me read the article caption correctly. Putin signs law banning crypto-based payments in Russia. Now, when I first read this, I was like, wait, so we're just outlawing all cryptocurrency? Now, there are definitely some caveats and nuances to this whole thing. And the basic idea that this thing came into law over the weekend, really Thursday going into the weekend. And it's, you can't use cryptocurrencies as a means of payment. And this was reported by RBC, the local news there. I'll read y'all this other part here. The ban applies to the use of digital financial assets, which is DFAs, and utilitarian digital rights, which refer to tokens that offer the right to utility or service. So basically, you can't do the sales of goods and services. What I find more interesting is that, at least for how it's covered here, they're not saying Bitcoin specifically, because Russia has been accepting Bitcoin at the government level for certain things. But what I also think is happening is, this is capital flight, but it's not being described that way. And I think that arguably this is a sanction on the people of Russia. This is a capital flight control, because even though Russia has positioned itself a certain way, they will still feel the effects of the global recession, arguably the global depression. But what I also know is that they've done things to implement KYC related cryptocurrencies. Nonetheless, I'm gonna jump on to this next story, but that just happened over the weekend pretty much over in Russia. It don't mean that people still not gonna use crypto the way they're gonna use it, by the way. I'm just saying, how do you enforce that? I know. But anywho, next thing here is, new Robinhood listing spurs gains of Ethereum-based decentralized exchange crypto project. That was a horrible title. I'm just going to say that to y'all at Daily Hodl. Basically, Robinhood is now offering support for Uniswap, which is the Uniswap token, or the Uniswap coin, whatever. And they also have been offering support for others that you see here, such as Chainlink, Dogecoin, Ethereum, Polygon, Shiba Inu, and Solana, and a couple other things. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to say about this in particular. If you're already on the platform, you're already on the platform. It is what it is. But I want to put this in context for something that I've seen play out with Coinbase. I was at an event in DeFi Philly the other day, and I watched the dude who was the representative for Coinbase Wallet, which is a totally separate entity from Coinbase. It is an offshoot, I believe, so it is connected in that way, but they have the cross-branding identity connected with Coinbase in their name. When I tell you the amount of interaction he had was minimal, it was minimal. Largely in part, at least from my observation, is because people are not fans of Coinbase. So there was a branding and market adoption issue because, in my mind, and at least from what I was observing that day, there was too much recognition of you're connected to Coinbase. Coinbase operates this way. They do funky stuff, and your wallet can't be trusted. Even though, even though it's a separate company, and it's a separate company, and but it's still like it was developed out of Coinbase. Now, in relation to Robinhood is saying that we're gonna make a non-custodial wallet. The question in my mind is gonna be when the market, when the real world market really starts to show the recession level of, all right, things is really crapping out here. And people in the crypto space have to then turn into be what I call forced hands. What are they going to do? They're going to go and get all of the gains that they was able to hold on to if they were doing stable coins or whatever. And they're going to start cashing out. They're going to start figuring out how to spend what they've made in the crypto space. Why? Because traditional means aren't going to work. This to me is going to be the questioning moment of, is Robinhood's crypto wallet really non-custodial? Is it really that there are no breakers in it for them to be able to stop a transaction, freeze activity, reverse activity, which is the more important thing? I don't know, but I think we might have a moment that will answer this question of yes or no. Will it be just like what they did during the, what is it, the Wall Street bet situation and the GameStop? Is that going to be another scenario that can play out within the wallet? I don't know. I just know I'm not touching it. It doesn't mean that you can't touch it. We each move how we move in this space, but do educate yourself on the intricacies of these wallets and what are the terms and conditions. Control F is your friend when it comes to searching terms of services, right? And even the privacy policy for whatever they are. Control F, utilize that to search through documentation. It will definitely help you cut through a lot of the 100-page and soup salad documentation stuff. I'm just throwing that out there as not financial advice, more so about you protecting yourself and at least educating yourself and being aware. All right, pushing on to this next joint. So in this short one, Paraguay's new bill may turn the country into mining haven. The basic idea is that their senators or their regulator people put a bill together that's, hey, we should make incentives for mining companies to come here because we have two highly productive dams that produce X amount of access power, and we need to do something productive with it that would help the country. Now, this isn't in the law yet, but it does bring in the question, would that really bring in the miners? And mind you, this isn't even like retail level. This is commercial industrial scale. This is, hey, we're building out like a 1,500 square foot place, or like we're buying up, let's say like what, 50, 100 acres of land in order to build out a farm. This is that level stuff. This isn't me in my basement level stuff. But it is interesting to know that countries are trying to find ways to bring in the industry, aka bring in the money into their local market. Because why? You're going to have to get the resources to build a facility there. You're going to have to hire X amount of the labor force there. You will have certain high level labor or like high level positions that will be X amount of outside the country people, but X amount of that physical labor, at least for the buildup, you're going to need local people. So that's one of those moves right here. And I think this is going to be something that we start seeing more throughout the year. Countries trying to figure out ways to get the businesses to come to their jurisdiction. This is one of those examples. What was the other thing that I thought? Oh, this is the other thing too that I thought was interesting. And I think that, all right, so let me read this statement to y'all. Minister Facchetti pointed at the National Security and Exchange Commission as the institution in charge of regulation. If the bill passes, the commission will be responsible for regulating and supervising all trading activities, custody, and emissions of cryptocurrencies. While it is not directly disclosed, miners' tax payments also seem to fall under the commission's control area. So you're going to have it that the companies come in, they're going to end up falling under X amount of regulations. How long would it take before somebody's, yo, we should figure out how to be able to put in some kind of stop loss or some kind of breaker into the company's function if they want to operate here. I'm not saying that's already in the bill. I'm just saying that was my thought process of how would you have a more direct, like, hand on the shoulder of the company to be able to have influence on them. I don't know. That's just my thought process. Yeah, that was the last thing on that one. I'm gonna jump into this last story. I honestly do think this is interesting, but not probably for why most people would. Yaga Labs opens Otherside for the first trips in Bored Ape Metaverse. The platform will only be open for owners of Otherside land plots in its first phase. So basically, this happened over the weekend. If you didn't already have the land plot, that NFT side set up, then you didn't have access to it, basically. And so it isn't even that it's for all of the Bored Ape Yacht Club owners. I would argue that even with the bad press that they got in the beginning of the month around the whole like Nazi and they're making fun of black people thing, I honestly don't think people care because at this point, the market isn't showing it, to me at least. And people are still buying it. They're still pushing out their products and services. But what I think is more interesting in this whole thing, hear me out, y'all. Hear me out for what I think is more interesting in this whole thing. And honestly, I don't really care for the project too much personally. Like, I'm not invested in any way on it. No NFT, no PFF, PFF. I think I'm saying that wrong, but nonetheless, what I think is more interesting is this right here. So they go through the first little run of letting people go through, and then they put out a white paper that talks about some of the things of how you can move around, what you can get, how they're planning to move forward as far as the development out of it. So the light paper also doubled down on Otherside's commitment to interoperability, the ability of digital assets to freely traverse the many digital neighborhoods or game platforms that potentially one day could constitute the avatar navigated metaverse. Proponents of the open verse, like Yaga Labs, see interoperability as key to the ethos of a democratized and accessible future internet. Now, is that X amount of virtue signaling? Probably, right? You got to market this stuff out. But the more bigger thing to me is one of the things that Yaga Labs did with Bored Ape Yacht Clubs was put it under the Creative Commons Zero IP, which basically meant like anyone could come up and make a derivative of it, which is why you see the proliferation of Bored Ape Yacht Club items and memorabilia and other type of NFT stuff the way you see it was because they opened it up like that. Now, I'm wondering, are they going to take that same level of philosophy and ability and practicality with how they're looking to move on the technical end with this new level for their metaverse thing? I think that's a bigger picture thing. And I think arguably that is a good thing to the space. Whatever you feel about the individuals or whatever you think the association of their history is, I don't really care. But I think in the bigger thing, when we talk about adoption, like this is a thing. This actually matters. And are they going to be the first ones to do it? And if they are the first ones to do it, do we then throw it to the wayside and trash it because somebody told us that we should be upset about some connection that they made on how they perceive the founders of the company? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Nonetheless, let me close it out and say, y'all, those are the things that happen. If you don't know, we got like the death row of crypto contributors on this channel that cover damn near every part of the space right now, from trading to metaverses, NFTs, and all. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm Trek with 2Ks. Y'all have a good week. And other than that, hey, one. Oh, wait up. Hold on. I forgot to say, my bad. I forgot to say this Wednesday, I will be doing a digital realty webinar with my partner in crime in this whole metaverse thing, 3D. And so if you check us out on Eventbrite, you can use the code Crypto Winter as one word to get 50% off. If you want to learn how to do this whole metaverse thing without actually being a coder or a trader and like the different ways that you can monetize on that, hey, check us out. We ain't promising you the future, but we at least trying to educate you while the market is down. So when things get back up, you have a better chance of success. We ain't promising it to you, but we at least hope you have a better chance of it. Other than that, y'all, like I said, have a good week. One.